My name is Sarah. I'm 21 and I'm a visual artist right now, probably on a spectrum of drawing to mixed media artist. I'm probably somewhere like here.
Hmm. What about those specific mediums, drawing or mixed media, attracts you?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like whenever anyone asks, I don't really have an answer besides the drawing feels the most free. It feels it I think lacks the most definition, which I enjoy because it leaves a lot of room for experimentation and things that don't necessarily feel very draw early to be incorporated in that sort of space. And I enjoy the play of textures. Yeah, like I kind of like the dynamic of like how flat drawing kind of is technically, and the contrast of things that are not necessarily drawing, like could be classified under mixed media, like the textures and the shapes that it can add to like a flat surface. I think that's pretty
Hmm.
interesting.
How did you get into drawing or mixed media?
I'm Drawing was just very like accessible, and yeah, it was just like something I could do, and I think anyone could really do with just pretty much anything, like a paper and pen. And that's where I like started. Like I kind of was always drawing just passively, and then it translated into like getting into zines, which is also kind of like this idea of like something that is very accessible and everyone can do. And then going into art school and playing around kind of with the ideas of like what is the future and where is contemporary art going is where mixed media came into play. Like, am I making sense?
No, you are making sense.
I Yeah, I just became very like fascinated with the idea of like what's new and what could be
Hmm.
different, because there kind of is nothing different in art. Everything is, in a sense, based off of each other or
Hmm.
inspired by things, or like, a drawing is always going to be a drawing and a painting is always going to be a painting. I liked the idea of what could happen if you kind of like combined everything in a way that maybe it doesn't even necessarily want to be combined.
Hmm. So do you believe that like your work is kind of like stealing in a way?
I don't think like stealing, I just think that everything is contextualized by everything around it. Like someone's always going to be inspired by experiences that they had and work that they've seen, and there obviously is plagiarism and stealing, but there also is there's a very like valid art form that is repetition and um satire and mockery, while also like repeating some. Yeah, there is like this idea of like recreating something does add to it. And I think in that case, when you can tell that something is being recreated and you don't shy away from the fact that you are recreating something, then you are adding to it. It's not just a blatant ripoff. There is some, especially I think, in this like traditional and hand drawn or like hand copied sort of world, that the process is a part of the piece. It is a very important and valid part of art, the time that is spent like recreating something, or like how you recreated something.
Uh, what do you find inspires your work the most?
I would say, in terms of like references, I definitely look a lot to sort of digital culture, from when I was growing up. A lot of these like flash games or online sort of like multiplayer games, I look to a lot, and those aesthetics I really enjoy. But I also sort of, I guess, things on the street and people. And
What sort of things?
I told you kind of earlier that I thought I was going to be late because I was just while I was walking here, I passed by a broken chair and a gross pillow on top of each other, and I walked past it and just thought to myself, "Oh, that's kind of gross." And as I was like a few steps later, I was kind of like, "But it's kind of beautiful." Like the framing of it is sort of very artistic in a
What
way.
makes it beautiful?
I just that it well, part of it is definitely um the strangeness of the occurrence. Like I enjoy sort of that feeling like it doesn't belong there, especially the way it was perched on top of each other, and the placement of it just like in the middle of the sidewalk. That feels very both intentional and strange and off-putting in a way that is eye-catching. And I don't know, then you kind of start to think of like how did it end up there, and like why, like how did it become like this, how long has it been there, what was its whole entire life before it ended up in that situation. And then you think of like the feelings and the symbols that it brings up that maybe aren't even intentional. Just as humans, we're conditioned to associate things with other things. And you think, like, okay, well, how does this make me feel? And it's not art, but it is art. And that that was eye catching to me.
So the stories behind objects and like creating those stories does inspire you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There was a guy there just standing, like smoking for maybe 5 minutes. I didn't know whether to keep going or
I
not.
fully did not notice. Awesome. Okay.
Um, he, yeah, I find this like at work too. I never told you this, but when they have us collect the sheets at the end of the day, sometimes I take pictures of the ridges and the rips that get created from people pulling the sheets out all day, because I'm like, oh, that's a story and it's all different, and that's it's a representation of like people working and coming in and leaving and doing their job or whatever. And I was like, this is art, this is art, everything is art. But yeah. Yeah, I will tell you the story about plastic wrap, in parentheses, wound dressing. Right. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it. I think that's like that like project is a point in my career as an artist, or just I guess my like my practice. That's a better word. But it's a moment, I think, of like a shift, or at least an understanding from me of what I wanted to create, or like something that was just so interesting to me that I just had to keep exploring it. But it came out of it, like complete experimentation. It was a mark making project for school, And I kind of became fixated on this idea of plastic wrap because I had previously been fascinated with this idea of like artificiality and that meshing of something that is like very very like almost 21st century, like futuristic, with something that is like traditional, like drawing with charcoal and pastel. And I like that idea still, kind of with like the merging of digital and traditional elements. There was a mix of stickers and plastic wrap because I also really like the materiality of stickers, just like because they're sparkly and fun, and also there's like a weird sort of commercialized, consumption-y vibe about them. But I just remember making a piece and bringing it to my professor at the time, and him saying, "Oh, this reads very medical. This reads very like cold and weird. Like you're you're trying to like preserve this like weird abject thing, this childlike whimsical thing that now reads as almost sort of like harrowing and empty." And I was like, that's really fascinating. And now I have to like completely destroy my life around this one idea. But yeah, it was the start of this more intuitional, diaristic way of approaching drawing, where I kind of just let myself see where things took me. Like it was this very like atmospheric, blurry, almost bruisey imagery. Like I really liked this idea of using yellows and pinks, very fantastical, cutesy colors, and how they would mesh together with charcoal to create something that looked very gnarly and very wound-like. And to have that covered with plastic wrap, like something so forever and trashy that we don't even really give a second thought to. Like you said kind of earlier today, how it is something that we don't think about, like we use and we throw away, but it's meant to preserve things forever, and it itself as an object is going to exist forever. And what came out of it was just this very beautiful piece, and something that I'm very proud of this idea of trying to preserve something that is already rotting or that wants to rot, and you're not letting it. And that went back to like imagery of childhood, symbols of childhood, and the dynamic of having these different emotions, almost conflicting emotions with it, of like, yes, of course, I have so much love and so much joy attached to these memories and to these concepts and ideas, but they're tainted almost with like mourning and bittersweet. Like I love the word bittersweet. I think that is a perfect encapsulation of whatever I'm making now, and how those things coexist and how they can coexist, because I'm also quite interested in this idea that everything is everything all at once. Oh, that's a movie title. But it's kind of like I believe in it, like that everything kind of exists within a vacuum of itself, and nothing is one or the other.
Do you ever feel an imposter syndrome when it comes to your art?
I was really worried going into school that I was going to feel like intense imposter syndrome, and I think it's just because I started art at kind of a late age, like 18, compared to everyone else who has been in art school pretty much their whole lives, that I don't really feel it. I think I feel like I have a relationship with my art that is so personal, I guess, that like I know in my head that I'm doing it for me. So when I go to critiques or whatever, or apply to shows, I kind of feel like I go into it feeling like, well, I think it's pretty cool. I like this shit. Like, if other people don't, then it's not really my
It
business.
doesn't really affect you if other people don't like it or just don't
Not
feel anything about it?
particularly, because even so, like when I interact with other people's work, I personally feel like if you put time and energy into something, then I'm going to put time and energy to appreciating it, even if I don't necessarily get it or understand it. And maybe I don't even like it, but you did it for you in the end. Like, it's not really my business. I feel you got something out of it. And that's like how I feel for me. I think I'm an artist because I get something out of this. Yeah.
What about burnouts?
Burnouts is another story. I get that. I get, like, I kind of feel perpetually in a state of burnout.
How come?
I think, well, it feels contradictory because I just talked about how I don't feel imposter syndrome, but I do feel this need for the things I make to be exactly what I envision them to be like perfect, or like to be like my best thing, my like magnum opus. And I think that thought, I don't know necessarily if people would describe that as burnout. That's what I feel as
Does
burnout.
it like ever stop you from creating the work?
Yes.
Okay.
It, like, I planned for this summer to be like my summer of creation, and I drew one thing offhandedly, and I'm working on one painting now, and it's only because somebody asked me to. I think there is like a voice in my head that, even though I don't feel imposter syndrome for the works I do end up creating, because once I end up creating something, like, I always am proud of it. I always find value in it. I think it's just the before of creating that I have this voice that says, like, there's no point if it isn't perfect, so don't start, you know?
Have you found any coping mechanisms, or
I
are you
think,
just dealing
well,
with it?
like the only real coping mechanism that makes sense to me is to just make. And the only thing that has worked is to just make. But I don't know how to get to that point where that's just something that I do. I think, yeah, I don't know. I hear all these stories, or I see all these people online doing like low stakes art, but that just hasn't really worked for me yet. But who knows, maybe it will eventually. Maybe I'll get it in my head that I could just make things to make things.
And how are you feeling about your future in your industry right now? Are you feeling safe? Is there anything that scares you?
I am a very short-term future thinker, so I don't think about it very often, and I maybe should. And I'm getting to a point in my degree where people ask me all the time and they expect me to have an answer of what I want to do after, or what I plan to end up doing. And to that, like, I've always just said, like, anything, as long as it's creative. I want to do so many things. I can name you so many things, and I'd be okay with doing any of them. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm hopelessly optimistic in that I think I'll be fine. And I think a lot of people will be fine. And, like, I think there will, or at least I hope there is always going to be a place for artists. And I know that's not necessarily true. Or, like the obvious impending threat, or not even impending, the threat that is right now is AI, and that sucks, and it's horrible and terrible and completely evil. And it feeds into my one worry that we are going to continuously misvalue art, or even devalue it completely, which does concern me a little bit and scare me for the future of art as a source of income, because we are on a path of completely devaluing art. Like, we think that this work and these beautiful things, or like this very, very impactful and meaningful thing all about like connection and making other people feel things, is just worthless, essentially. Like, the fact that the push for it to be done by robots is because it's cheaper, like, that is completely messed up. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, or at least I don't know what to say about it pertaining to what we should do about it as artists, because I'm not sure that we can do anything about it, and I feel like I'm just rambling about nothing.
Do you think we should learn how to cope with it, or should we just avoid it?
It's an interesting question, because a lot of people in the industry, specifically in film or the video game industry, that I've talked to have told me to embrace it, which is a really horrific reality, but I, to some extent, understand where they're coming from, because it is all just survival under capitalism. It's really hard to rebel against something that you can't opt out of necessarily. Like, if you want this to be your job, your life source, your income in this system, I understand the need to lean in. I don't necessarily agree with it.
Why not?
Because I don't want to lean in. And I don't want, like, why would I? All of my enjoyment and fulfillment comes out of all of this stuff coming out of my brain. All of these, like, ideas that I have, like, I need to put those somewhere. Why would I ask some, like, unsentient being to give me more ideas? And why would I let it, when I'm all about, like, this idea of, like, storytelling and layers and archives, why would I ever go to something that doesn't have that can't feel that? I don't understand it, and I don't want it to do anything for me. I want to make the bad art. Like, I want don't take that away from me is kind of what I'm saying. And that's how I feel whenever anyone brings it up, where they say, like, oh, I want it to write my essays for me. I want it to write my scripts for me. Like I kind of just want to... My just immediate response to that is, like, maybe you clearly just don't want to do that. And that's fine. You don't have to. Nobody's making you do that. But I want to. Like, I go through phases of being like, I hate this. I hate drawing. And I just do the same. I commit myself to projects that require me to do the same action over and over again. But I would never want to give that up. And it frustrates me that anyone would ever suggest for me to give that up.
How has it changed, or has it even changed your, like, future? The other art pieces you made after that, are those themes that you find yourself going back to?
Yes. I don't know where my future in drawing lies, but definitely closely after that, everything I was making was an extension of that. Like, going into Burn-In, they are interconnected pieces. They touch on very similar topics, and they look very similar because of that. But definitely the techniques used, like this airy, sort of blurry, dreamy backgrounds and images that are there but not quite there, and that disappear into other images, and also, again, this sort of more intuitional way of art in general. And I think that is, like, that, discovering that was a moment in my brain of being like, this makes sense. This is what I want to do, and this is easy, and this is fun and I'm getting a lot out of this, approaching art this way. It's almost like I was explaining this to my friend the other day, of just why I kind of enjoy these, like, huge projects that take me a long time and several days to complete, is because I get, like, it's like it's tapping into this, like, that feeling that art in general only gives me, and that's why I do it, because it's the only thing that gives me this feeling of, like, I need to go back to it. Like, I need to see what happens, almost. Like, I need to see how these things interact, and I need to see what comes out of my brain. I need to see what, like, almost like it's alive. Like, it is its own being.
Could you expand on your fascination with rotting things?
Yeah.
What about rot
Is
inspires you?
It's hard for me to put into words, or at least to talk specifically about rot. I think it's, like, partially it is this idea of, like, what's coming to my mind right now is this idea that, like, to be loved is to be changed. And, like, I love seeing objects that people have had for several years and that have been worn down completely beyond recognition. I think that's, like, beautiful, and it goes back also to that, like, storytelling aspect that I'm very interested in, of I want to see, like, the lifespan of something, and I think there's, like, a beauty in things not lasting forever, like, that something beautiful can exist and be seen and be loved only to die and to never be seen again. There's something that feels very important in that sentiment to me. And yeah, I also I hate this idea that, like, especially in fine arts, of things being archival and that things should last forever, and that we're specifically making things to last forever. Something about that feels so, like, sanitary to me and unreal.
What makes you think you've made a good piece of art?
Like, for real, I kind of just... Art for me, because of school, mostly... like, it's a lot of the time that I'm working several days straight, like really late at night, and I have no idea how I feel about my art. I have no idea if it's good or if I'm doing something, anything. And then I go to sleep one day and I wake up mostly on crit day and I kind of just go, oh, this is pretty sick. Like, I think it's pretty cool. But I guess, like, besides that, it's very validating to go to crit or even just to show my art anywhere and have people just tell me, like, how it reads to them, like what it makes them feel, I guess.
Kind of on that topic, what kind of reaction makes you feel like they have understood your art or they're appreciating it the way that makes you fulfilled?
I like hearing anything, whether, like, however it makes you feel, but I'm very lucky. I feel that a lot of the times people kind of nail me on the head. Like, people normally they'll say things that I didn't even think of, or at least I wasn't consciously thinking of, that make me go, oh yeah, like, you get it. That is, you got it, like, dead on. And that, I feel like, that's the reaction I want from myself. And by proxy, I guess, that's the reaction I'd like from other people. But however you read it is however you read it.
Do you have any dreams in your future in the art scene?
I think my dream is to just make art. I think my dream is just to be in a space where I can make art and have that be just what I do. Of course, like, it's to a point where I would be okay working, like, this job, like our job, almost forever. At least that's how I feel right now, if it meant I had time to make art. And I'm surrounded by a lot of other artists, and I get to talk about art all the time. But I don't know, I guess specific dreams, I'd love to work in film. I'd love to work in video games. I'd love to curate a show of my own or of other people. I think that's very interesting and very exciting.
Is there a theme that you would choose when you're curating?
Guess what theme I would choose, Maz. Fun, I would 100% digital culture. Anything to do with early 2000s media at all, that's fun, that's cool. That would bring me a lot of just happiness to see, and I would have a lot of fun doing that. Otherwise, honestly, I feel like you're expecting me to say rot. I don't think that's what it would be. I think that's what I do a lot in my own art. But if I were to do a show, maybe that would be the theme, unintentionally. I feel like I never really strived to make art about it. It just happens. But yeah, like I would really love to be a part of a show that just explores a lot of different, just like dives into materiality and is just very sort of unconventional and interesting in that way. I think that would be very, that idea is very intriguing to me. Just to have a lot of very strange art in the same space that maybe necessarily doesn't even like make sense to anyone but the artist, or maybe doesn't even make sense to the artist. But I think that would be cool.
How would you call it? Invite me.
I would, of course. I've never done a show, but I can imagine that I treat any show that I make or I'm a part of just like as my weddings, and I invite everyone I know and I encourage everyone to come.
Where can people you?
On Instagram at Sara, Sara dot toast, TOAST. A portfolio I'm sure will come soon. I just don't know how to make a website. And Maz is nodding. You can't see him. I bet he also doesn't know how to make a website.
One day. It'll be the best website ever.
It will
I'll
be
have
the best
games
website.
on my website.
Yeah, dude, that'd be so cool.
It's like trivia about my movies.
Yeah.
If you pass, you get to see me.
Be so self-absorbed with it. You have to introduce fun into your life, or else what else is there? I think there should be so many pointless things on my website. There should be a survey every time you come in and you pick a drawing that I've done, which one feels the most like you today. You're making a face like that's a good idea. I feel like it's not a good idea.
You don't get the vision, even though it's yours. You don't get it.
Yeah, I want to have like a message board, like we're in like 2008. I think it'd be awesome. I think it should look like it's 2008. I think it should have the worst UI you've ever seen in your life. I think it should be terrible to navigate. I think you should have to work to see my art.